So we're going to talk about language-rich and print-rich environments for young learners. So before we start, just a little bit about me, although you did such a beautiful introduction just now, I don't think we need this slide. The only thing I want to add to that is that I am a mum of two and a wife to my wonderful husband, Owen, and yeah, they're just fantastic people. So I always have to say thank you to them whenever I go anywhere, really. So my objectives for this talk is just to basically understand what print rich and language rich environments are. I would like you to understand how our physical setup can influence the learning of young students, and then learn how to use these ideas to set up an effective learning environment for our young learners. So let's start first with our print rich environments. What is it? So basically, print-rich environments are classrooms that provide students with opportunities to interact with all forms of prints. So think of any writing you have in your room, that could be on the walls. Think of books also, so any printed materials. So this definition here is actually taken from 2003. It's a little bit outdated at this point, and more recently, you could see things like QR codes leading to books, or you might have more inquiry based displays like maps or diagrams within your rooms. So there's no doubt that print is important, and COSA this year says that an environment without print can actually negatively impact the foundational skills necessary for future reading success. So it is really, really important to have print within your room. So this might inspire you, these last two slides, to go ahead and you think, signs, labels, displays, I could do all that. And you might get a little bit ahead of yourself and come out with something like this in your room. So, what we want to talk about today is not just print classrooms, we want to talk about print rich rooms and environments for our students. So, one of the key messages to take away here is quality over quantity. So just to kind of drive this idea home to you guys, I'm going to show you a photo or a picture, excuse me, in the next slide. And I want you to take 30 seconds to just have a look and take in as much detail as you can, because I am going to quiz you on something about the picture. Here we go. Hoping for some background music. My slides didn't allow for it. Hopefully you can hear this. Hey. So your 30 seconds are up. Now, can you tell me what was the color of the cooler box that the man? Oh, it's okay. Don't worry, it was just a little bit of music to play in the background. Don't worry about the sound. What was the color of the cooler box the man in red and white shorts carried? Oh, oh, wow. Somebody here. Oh, a couple of people have played a blinder. Wow, well done. Okay, I was not expecting you to get this answer, so thank you very much. I can end my presentation now. But here we go. We've got our man in our red and white shorts. He's carrying an orange and yellow cooler box. So, for the people who were unable to answer that question, can you tell us why? Why do you think, just take a minute and tell me, why was it hard to recall the information from that picture? You can write your answers there in our little chat boxes. Visual overload, so many things happening. Absolutely. Way too many details, way too much information. Lots of images, lots and lots. Okay. So absolutely hit the nail on the head there. It is numerous characters doing it. Yeah. And yeah, they're very odd things. There was a sail upside down and a whole bunch of things going on. So it all plays into this idea of cognitive overload. And this is a very key phrase in education. So I think maybe some of you are already familiar with it. I saw somebody had written the word overload in one of their answers. So how does the picture contribute to this idea of cognitive overload? Too many visuals. You already told me this. Absolutely. They're all competing for our attention. No guidance on where to look. I just told you look at everything, and I'm going to ask you a question. And your working memory gets overwhelmed. So basically, you didn't know what was important. So everything was important. And then that made everything or didn't make anything important. Everything lost its importance, I should say. So cognitive overload is when too much information for the brain to manage all at the one time. So if you can think back to the display that I showed just a few moments ago, think about that display and about how that idea of cognitive overload, how that plays into that image that I showed earlier. So I just want you to take away this age-old adage of less is more. And absolutely, when it comes to cognitive overload and for to draw your attention, when you want focused attention on a specific area, less is absolutely more. So, sorry, my chat box is in the way here now. So, print is valuable, but purposeful print is what makes the difference. So research shows, and I actually put it in here, but I don't know if you can actually click in. But anyways, it tells us that highly decorated classrooms causes distraction. Now, it also says in that article that after some time that the distraction lessens, but it never actually goes away. So students do get used to the visual clutter going on in the room, but it doesn't go away completely. So the tips that they give is don't over decorate classrooms. If you are going to put things up on the walls, maybe you want to position them cleverly. So if you don't want your attention drawn away, maybe you can place the displays on the side of the room, perhaps even behind the students. And if they are placed in those areas, you then have to think about defining and developing your classroom culture early. So signposting your students to the displays because they're at the side and they're at the back, or maybe they're on the tables, and teaching them how to use those to support learning and to avoid distraction. There we go. So these are some tips in particular for young learners. So the type of print is important, especially with our youngest learners who are just learning those the very starting of writing and print. It's important that we pick lettering that supports their understanding of letters at that very foundational stage. Research also shows, and you can see a huge shift in young learners' classrooms lately into more neutral colors. So those bright colors, they do affect your cognitive overload. And so there's a shift towards even, those Hessian backgrounds. And I've got a picture to show you in a minute to give you an idea. And neutral and natural colors, the greens, the browns, the beiges. And then another tip is to keep things low. So lower than you might think. So in my classroom, when I'm teaching with my youngest students, we write on the floor all the time. So when I'm thinking low, I think hip height. And actually, I probably should go even lower again because realistically, when they're writing, if I want them to look at a display to support their writing or their learning in that moment, we actually could be lower than low. We're on the floor. So couple your pictures as well with words. So as our children are learning, again, the very, very start of learning phonics and learning words, we want to couple those words with pictures to support the children in their learning. So a key point is just be intentional. Keep messages clear and with their purpose. So try not to over clutter and be very, very intentional on what you put up. Everything you put up is going to take some attention from the children. So you want to make sure that you are being very intentional on what is going to take their attention away. So here's a little example of some of the points that I said before. The only thing I would say here is that I can see this is actually quite up high. So if it is up high, you have to go back and you have to teach the children, especially our youngest learners, to refer to that while they're doing the writing. You literally have to model, okay, up here is our phonics board. We can find our letters and our sounds. Great. Up here it is. Here I go. So you really do have to develop that culture early if things are not right at their level, if it's a little bit higher or to the side or to the back. So this is just a nice, I just found this, I thought it was a lovely little example. The writing's clear, it's very age appropriate. It's so easy to focus on exactly what information I want them to take from the display. So, and then with EAL specific learners in mind, here are some print-rich ideas that you might want to incorporate into your classrooms. So story maps have been very, very useful in my classrooms in the past to help with language development, and it just supports the story. I really love story maps, and we did a talk for writing style teaching, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. You might want sentence starters, both for writing and for speaking, depending on your class. You can incorporate some dual language labels depending on the language, your home language of the children in the classroom. Um, Common phrase charts in certain areas of the room. So, on the way out to the bathroom, you might have a little speech bubble or any kind of whatever way you want to display it, saying, can I go to the bathroom? Or over by the snack area, you might say, may I have more, please? Or, different common phrases that could support their speaking. We have visual timetables, and then we might have a home language corner as well. So these are some print-rich ideas that you could incorporate into to support our EAL learners in any class, really. So, but also saying that actually a lot of these you could use with all children, it would support them absolutely in any classroom. So something just to think about for the moment, think about your own classroom, and I want you just to have a little think about what you have up around, what print materials are available to the children, how they are available to the children, and just think to yourself, are they helping or are they harming? And then just before we move on to our next session, I just want to leave you with a word of caution here. Here's my little display again. And just to say that print should enhance and support student learning, and it should never be the loudest thing in the room. So, speaking about loud, we're going to talk about language-rich environments. So, we want to, when we're talking about language-rich environments, we're talking about a setting that allows children to, sorry, this is in the way. Sorry. There we go. To engage in meaningful language experiences. So the way I like to shorten this little quote above is it should be a space where children hear it, see it, say it, and use it. So the environment, it's supportive and stimulating and consistent in encouraging children to use and understand language throughout their learning. And something that we need to think about with our young learners is how do our youngest learners learn? And of course, play. Children learn through play. So it is so important that we have play and playful experiences built into our classrooms. So we can do that in different ways. So one of the ways that we can do that, of course, is what teachers do. So the way that we are giving input. So here are some tips. We can talk and listen. So those early back and forth interactions with adults and with others in the room are super important for cognitive development. So as adults, we get to model the language that we want the children to use, and they get to practice that with their friends. And we get to hear it as well. We get to hear where they are. We get to hear where we need to support them. And that is just so important. And it's not just quality here as well, but it is also quantity. So we want to have quality conversations a lot, basically, in with our youngest children. And I'm sure, as a lot of you know, you will repeat yourself a lot with our youngest learners. So comment and expand. So something that you might see a lot of early years teachers do is actually narrating what the children are doing. So a good example I like to give is when a child falls over. And like even think of it as an adult yourself. If you fall over and the first thing someone says to you is, "Did you just fall over?" I mean, I would be infuriated at it. Of course, you want to help them. You want to give them the language to help explain what has just happened because they might be shook by the whole experience themselves. So if you see a child fall over, you might say, "Oh no, you fell over. Oh my gosh, you scraped your knee and your hand hurts now, does it?" So you want to give them the language that they can use to describe the situation. And then on top of that, you want to expand it further. So if, for example, you're having something to eat with the children and someone turns and they say, "Oh, this food is yucky." I'm going to say, "Yeah, it's yucky, right? Oh, look, it's slimy and slippery and it's slipping through my fingers." You want to expand that language and give them more to work with. So you can echo back what they say and then expand it, give them new vocabulary, and they can make that connection in their mind. And of course, we want to read and engage. So not just storybooks, but we want to read nonfiction. We want rhymes, poems. We want a lot of reading, quality reading within your classroom. And not just that, we want to engage with the books themselves. So asking those questions, the inference questions, predicting questions, summarizing questions, and we don't have to limit this to words within a book. We can also use this for the pictures in the book. We can draw attention to how the characters are in the book or what the setting is. And you can use that way also, even for our youngest learners who might need that support, you know. So yeah. So we must allow for rich language to take place. Again, they must see it or hear it, see it, say it, and use it. And then, of course, when I'm talking about say it and use it, we must be sure to use and embed this language within the children's environment. So they need opportunities to do that. And they need that in low stakes settings. And of course, a low stakes setting where they can use new language, play in playful activities amongst their peers. They need to feel very safe to explore and experiment with these different languages. And they also need to be able to do that in different contexts. So yeah. So conversation, storytelling, role playing, and guided questioning are only some of the ways that you could use it. And here are some other ideas. You might use song, poems, chants, movement, stories and tales, rhymes, games. What else have I got here? Quality books, puppets, role play, costume, and what is play without toys, right? So that leads me into talking about our classroom setup. We need to adapt our youngest learner lessons to include all of these things that I just said. And our environment can really affect how we allow that to happen within our classrooms. So let's talk about the physical environment, moving in for a moment here. So I'm going to show you two pictures. Here, I've got classroom number one. Just have a wee look around, take in some of the details. No trick questions this time, I promise. And then we've got classroom number two. Again, take in the details. And then my question to you this time is, which classroom setup best supports language-rich play to take place? Lovely. Okay, this is the one that I was hoping you did get, so you guys are doing great this time. You're not catching me on the hop. Okay, absolutely, I agree with you. Room one. So in the chat box there, what features do you guys see in this room that allow for this language-rich play to happen? Yep. Stations, alternative seating arrangements, absolutely. I can imagine the children moving from place to place in this classroom. Home corners, love them, absolutely. Yeah, space to move. It looks very flexible, absolutely. I'm sure that they have a lot of choice in this room as well. And yes, the materials, right? We can see in the background there's toys, there's Yeah, there's toys, there's role play items, there's trays back there, which I'm sure are going to be filled with other things as well. Yeah, loose parts, color-coded trays, absolutely. So you've picked out so many things. So yes, and the curved tables, which allow children to see each other, allows the teacher to be more interactive as well, that it's not just them, us, you know. Big windows, oh yeah, bright lights are, I mean, natural lighting are just big fun. Yeah, so our youngest learners now are typically what you would see in earlier settings, and actually, this trend is creeping into Key Stage 1, which I'm really, really happy to see happening around. But it's that our set, or sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Is yes, our settings now organize their rooms into these ideas of centers with continuous provision. So, continuous provision is basically provision that is out all the time throughout the day, in which the children can go and take part in using the materials in order to continue their learning. It's structured, it's intentional, and it is designed to promote learning in meaningful ways. It's not just toys out and thrown out, although there is a time and place for that, I will say that there's, but anyways, but it's very intentional. The room is set up in a way that is going to promote our students' learning, depending on the students in the classroom and depending on the learning which the teacher wants to take place. So when the environment is intentional, it keeps the teaching, or sorry, it keeps teaching long after the input ends. So this is something I just argue that all young learner classrooms should be designed with toys and play and the children at heart. It shouldn't just be those early years classrooms. So, like I said, a lot of Key Stage 1 are now incorporating a lot more playful aspects into classrooms, around my area at least, and from what I see in the UK from some of the teachers that I've spoken with there. Um, so yeah, it's just young learners, this is how they learn. They learn through play, and so our environments should echo that. Um, so am I being idealistic? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think all classrooms should be set up in really playful, with the centers, with very obvious like learning intentions, and how like in such a playful way in which we could promote learning through play and through their guided play, or through, or sorry, I'm trying to their led play, and also through our support. So I just think it would be absolutely amazing to see this in all young learner classrooms, not just in early years classrooms, you know. But throughout my experience, I have seen a lot of limitations. So for example, these are some of the things which I've seen. So we might have some limited space. So classrooms could be too small to set up multiple centers. Um, Sometimes EAL provision, I know that our EAL teachers might actually teach from year one all the way up to year six in the same classroom. So they might argue that they can't have centers in their classroom because they have to accommodate for all of these students. So I understand. We might just not have the furniture. I've spent so much money on buying just shelves for my class, or little shoe racks that I could put trays on, or and even just trays themselves. Just some classrooms are just not set up for it, and we don't have the resources for it. And then, of course, the resources for the actual centers themselves. I say here thematic resources, but I mean, I've worked in some schools where I've actually I didn't even have blocks or anything, to work with. So I know that that can be a huge barrier. And then staffing limitations. Of course, if you've got a room with a lot of children and a lot of different centers, it takes firstly a lot of time to teach the children how to use the centers. And if you've only got one adult in the room, it can be super, super difficult, especially if you have any SEN children, or honestly, or if you just have, if you any children, it's very, very difficult if you are on your own sometimes, or even if there is only just two adults in the room. So I do understand these things. Um, the one thing that I've come across a lot in my experience has been curriculum requirements, a misunderstanding from peers and from SLT in our schools as well about how learning takes place and about this need for evidence of learning. To say that, that they have to have writing in the books or certain things. And this quote is one I've heard more than once. When does the real learning take place? So we can find ourselves in situations where we just can't have this center-based setup of a classroom because of these different barriers and because of other barriers that I might not be aware of. So we might find ourselves in a position where we could end up somewhere in the middle with a classroom that looks something like this, which I'm sure a lot of you maybe have come across. So even yeah, in some of the schools that I have both worked in and then I know others to work in as well, our key stage one tends to look like this at the moment. So you've got the children working in groups, you've got some collaborative activities that happen in the class, and the teachers bring in playful activities where they can. However, it's still a very not play-based setup. And this is still for just children who are bang into year one and they've come from play-based and they're expected to sit at tables and take part in lessons like this, which can be quite difficult. So, I mean, it's an okay, it's if it's what you have to do, it's what you have to do, right? And this is where I want to be quite realistic moving forward. So I know that idealistically, I would love every classroom do play, 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 play. But it's a hard sell for some schools and also for the parents involved in those schools. So ending up with some classroom like this is quite an okay middle ground for now. So what we want to do is think about how we can work with what we've got, right? So here, we're going to talk about some ideas that we could use to set up a classroom for play, right? So you might take a small group focus to begin with. So even if you can't do a full center, maybe there's a small group of children who might benefit from a playful activity and you could work with them first, or maybe with half of your class while the other half are doing something else, or, just to give you some ideas. It doesn't have to be everyone all going at the same time. Perhaps we could take this in more bite-sized chunks, just to bring it into our classrooms. And perhaps you could think of even using a flexible space. So maybe there's one corner of your room that you could dedicate to role play, for example. So this here in the picture is actually one of the examples I'd like to show. This would be taking one area of your room and creating a space. And Christmas is only around the corner, so I thought it would be a good example. So for example, this could be your role play Christmas area. So you could set it up like this, and the children could take part in some activities like unwrapping Christmas gifts, unwrapping gifts on Christmas morning. Maybe they could have dinner together. So yeah. So just having a look at this picture again, you tell me, what language-rich opportunities can you see happening just by incorporating this one area into your classroom? Was I speaking too fast? Um, yes, great. Okay. Thank you, Vanessa. So, yes, free play and role play. So, I'm thinking language rich. So, I'm thinking here on the wall, for example, you might see that there's a little bit of writing. It's a little letter to Santa. So, perhaps the children could have a go at writing some letters to Santa. Can we see any other language rich opportunities for the children here? Yes, Christmas cards, absolutely. We could pretend play that we're writing Christmas cards or sending Christmas cards, or we could pretend that we received Christmas cards. Christmas food, absolutely. Talking about cooking the Christmas food. We could talk about eating the Christmas food, which is more up my street. Yeah, having tea, absolutely. Talking about the weather, how they might feel during Christmas, anything like that. Advent calendar, yeah, it's a No, I can't say. But advent calendars is a great one. So you might even put little objects inside the advent calendars, and they could be little talking points about Christmas. Absolutely. Words learned for traditional. Yes, decorating names, placing them, stockings, presents. Absolutely. So yeah, so even from this one corner alone, we've got so many language rich activities that could just come from it. And very little has to be teacher led. They can come also from the children. So if you simply put, I think I'm even thinking of my son, if you put him in here, he would come up with ideas that I wouldn't even think of. So incorporating a corner like this into your room could add such wonderful language rich opportunities into your classroom. So moving on to our next slide. Yes, here's some more ideas on how you might incorporate this play into your classroom. So you could use portable or low cost materials, um, and you could rotate materials using a center of week approach in or if multiple centers aren't feasible. So actually, one of the things I'll say to you is that, it's very, very doable. We just have to introduce play wherever we can, and you've got to be creative about it. So, for example, the first school that I went into, when I moved abroad, I worked in a couple of different kindies. So my classroom, the first one was a box classroom. It was tiny, and I had 16 kids in the room. And I had very few resources. I was going to say zero, but it was close to zero, but I won't say zero. And I had to get really, really creative on how I was to use the room. So what I did was I set my teacher table in the center because the school I had to do workbooks with children. So the children, I would call them up to do their workbooks. But while I was working with small groups at a time, I actually pushed all the other tables against the wall. And then on those tables, the chairs faced the wall, but on those tables, I had trays. And the trays were full of different learning activities, but through play. So I had small world activities available in a tray. I had blocks and another one. And I had what is it? I had we were doing Jack and the Beanstalk as well on one of the things I'm thinking of. And I had like a planting station where they were able to actually use soil and beans. And they were planting beans into little pots. So now this classroom was tiny. I was in the middle working with small groups, and all of my children were faced away looking at the wall, but playing with each other in that direction. So it wasn't it was not a model classroom by any means. But the point I'm trying to get across is it's doable. We just have to be creative, and we've got to make it work, and make what we have work for us. So another idea that we could do as well is we could try a carousel. So in the classroom that I described above, difficult to bring in, maybe you can't bring in your area, maybe you can, but what we can do is use that idea of the trays. So we could set up three different activities. One, wrapping presents. Two, writing letters to Santa with the teacher. So you could do that with teacher. And then three would be letter formation in fake snow. So you'd split your group into three. I always split my groups, by the way, a little earlier as tip. I always split them and I gave them names and depending on the theme. So you could change it every term or whatever you wanted to change. But I liked to call them, lions, off you come, or giraffes, off you come. And for different things, depending on what subject it was, depending on what needs the children had, they had loads of different groups and they loved it. And they all knew what groups they were in. Like they knew if they were the grapes, they knew if they were giraffes. So you can make it work for you in your classrooms. So you might have your three groups here, split them into the three groups. Group one, your giraffes would be working with the wrapping presents, while your elephants, group two, were writing with you, and your lions, group three, were doing letter formation in fake snow. So all with your Christmas theme. One group is working with you where you get to be very, very focused with them, whereas the other children are practicing some language skills that we might have introduced at the start of the class through a story, or something like this. And then I set a timer on the board. And my children are trained into knowing that one ding means freeze, two dings means reset the task, three dings means move. So I do my however many minutes with my children, timer ends, ding, freeze, ding, ding, everybody reset, put all your work together, everything else, and then ding, 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 you move to your next center. So, and then that way you could get through your three groups and you get to work closely with a small group as well. So to visualize how that might look, like this. I tried to put a little picture together for you guys. So there's the teacher table there, writing letters to Santa. You've got your table here for wrapping presents, and then you've got your fake snow, painting in the fake snow with your paintbrushes. So your timer goes ding, 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 and they all move centers. So just some ideas I hope that you can take back into your classrooms. I think, as I said, the main takeaway here is I know ideally we would love to set up our classrooms like that, but we've got to work with what we have, you know? So let's not throw in the towel and say we just can't. Let's see what we can do to bring play into our classrooms and to offer that language rich opportunity to the kids. So, my advice here is to combine language rich practices and print rich features through purposeful physical setup. So, before the children even come into the class or the environment, depending where you are, how is that environment set up? And how does that allow the children to interact with you, with each other, and with the materials around? And then, of course, when I think about the print in the room, what opportunities do they have to interact with the print in the room? And how is that print set up? And then, of course, what language rich practices are we using? Are we talking and listening? Are we commenting and expanding? Are we reading and engaging? And are we allowing them to use and embed that language within our rooms? So, my last little bit of, I don't know, quote. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. My last little slide says, when we are intentional, the classroom becomes a tool for learning, and it's not just a space filled with things. So every song, every story, every label, visual, and interaction should have a very clear purpose that supports communication, literacy, and learning. So be very, very intentional from the very beginning, before the children even step in the room, and ensure that language learning happens naturally throughout the day and in every part of the environment. So on to my Q&A part, I think. Do I have any? I see here, Harriet, you were asking, how do I navigate through a class of over 80 students in the classroom?
Yeah,
How
good.
many teachers do you have?
I think
Oh,
she
sorry,
says
how many?
80.
Oh, how many teachers are in the room?
Oh, teacher, sorry.
Hmm.
That's a very good question. One.
Just one. Wow, that's a lot. Okay. So I feel like that's a safeguarding concern. Um, um, I think that's another talk. No, okay, so the best thing I can say, if I had a lot of students, I've never worked with 80, I have to be honest with myself on my own, my goodness. But maybe group them as best you can, ask for help. But yeah, I think group them as best you can. I'm just sorry, I'm stuck on the 80 number. I'm going to bring pair it back. So I had 30 students in my class one time. So I'll work with that in mind. And what I did with them was I had five groups of six. And there was, yeah, it was a lot of management. And at the start, it was like I described to my mum and dad when I went home. I said it was a bit like cattle herding for the first couple of days and weeks, trying to teach them the routine. But I was really, really clear. Like I said, those three dings, my Monty Python three dings. I rarely, like, I never raise my voice. It's not my thing to shout in the classroom. I hate it. So I usually use sounds, bells, whistles, dings. But they were very well practiced. So those first couple of weeks, I just really practiced. Lining up was a big thing. Moving from center to center was a really big thing, and taking care of their own things. So I think when you have a really large classroom, I think that you really need to be very strong in those classroom management and have it as clear as possible for the children. So, like that, for your animals, you might even have your picture of the lion on the board or an A board, and then underneath little pictures of every child's face under it. So they know clearly which group is which. And of course, you can swap it. So you can say, lions, up you come. Okay, Johnny, actually, will you go with giraffes today? If, for example, they're working on a learning objective that he's quite secure on and you want him to move into a different group. So you could do something like that. But I would just say if you've got that many children, it's really down to really strong classroom management, I think.
I just wanted to add something to what you said, Pearl, which I
Mm,
think is an amazing like answer.
please.
I think that if possible, also work with monitors, but not teachers, because she's already said that
Mm,
she's got only one teacher, but somehow like maybe inviting some students who could be like monitors, and then it would just like, I don't know, like students could take turns being monitors, give them like as if it was a job for them.
yeah, yeah,
Could work.
yeah.
Could not work, could work. Would have to try. Thank you so much for
It
answering.
all just comes down to, oh, sorry, I was going to say there, I add your point. I think it all comes down to the training and the culture you build within your classroom.
Yes.
So at that start of the year, make it very clear your expectations and try and ensure that you withhold those expectations as you go throughout the year. So yeah, the monitors could absolutely work, but you have to be very, very clear. What does a monitor do? And, and how, I suppose, how that job looks. It has to be very clear to them as well as to yourself.
Like, I think that starting small, like one day you try one thing, and then another day you try something else, and then like introducing like things like little by little in case like when we have so many students. There's another question for you, which is like in a Q&A box. So I'm gonna read out. So
Oh yeah.
it's from Eileen, and then they're asking, do you think printing is sustainable and environmental?
So depends, right? Because with our youngest learners, the alternative to printing usually goes to iPads, right? I've worked with some teachers before who have felt quite restricted in printing, and they've then moved a lot to slides. And it's not a very appropriate way for children to learn, right? Through slides, or young children to learn through slides, in my opinion, depending on how it's used. I feel like they're a tool, but sometimes if you use it as a crutch, it's not the way forward in my eyes. So printing, I mean, if it's necessary, it's necessary. Like, for example, a storybook, I would far quicker print a storybook than I would like to present one on a slide. If I had, like, I feel like there's something to touching, touching a book and everything like that. And if printing is the closest you can get to it, then I'm in favor of that. It's not sustainable. And so we have to think, why are we printing it? And is that the only way to promote learning? So if, for example, you're doing an addition, right? Let's say we're doing simple addition with children and um you're printing sheets with addition on the sheet and the children have to write the letters. Is that, I suppose then I would question, is that the most effective way for a young learner to learn? Is that very playful? You know? So I guess I would question that firstly.
Thank you.
Yes, and when we print, we can use it multiple times. I have these beautiful they're like pockets. You put the and it's I know some teachers print them, laminate them, and write with whiteboard marker on the laminated sheets, but I find them very difficult to clean off. But you can get these wee pockets, I can't remember the name of them, and you put the paper in and you can write on it with whiteboard markers. So yeah, it's about thinking of different ways and and as you said there, if we're going to print something, make sure that it's used multiple times. Absolutely. But I would just go back to that very start and be like, right, is this the most effective way for the learning to happen? Is there a more playful way? I suppose that would be my very first question.
Thank you so much, Pearl, for sharing all your ideas. I got so many notes here. One that I
Oh,
really
great.
want to say that summarizes so many of your wonderful ideas is quality over quantity. So as you
Absolutely,
said, so
yeah.
this is something that I really like stayed with me. And also another thing that is very important is like how we can work with what we've got. So I think these two things you said, I'm gonna take them with me. And again, thank you very much for being here today with us, for sharing your ideas and insights. And I'm sure that everybody absolutely loved your session. Thank you so much.